Hi, good morning everyone. First of all, a huge thank you for inviting me today. Really pleased to be here. Thank you to the British Council. My social enterprise is indeed in a forest. It's in a wood in the middle of England. And sometimes, you can't see the wood for the trees. And it was so inspiring to be here last night to talk to many of the young embryonic social entrepreneurs, some of you just starting out, some of you kind of there, some of you already there, and it was really, truly inspiring for me. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Today I'm going to talk to you in two halves. The first half and the first few slides are all about the impact of social enterprise in the UK. As a board member of Social Enterprise UK, we're the umbrella body for social enterprises. And then the rest of the slides will be telling you a little bit about Hillholt Wood and my personal journey into social enterprise. Quite often, the one question people ask you is, why are you doing what you do? Are you born a social entrepreneur? Or is it something that just happens? And what struck me last night about being here in Lithuania was the many young people straight out of university, social taxis being one, who have just got it. They just want to do good. They want to do business, but business unusual, not business usual. And that was really inspiring. For me personally, it happened a lot later, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later on. So, what is social enterprise and how does it look in the UK? Well, one of the key things is globally we are facing some massive challenges. And I really believe that social enterprise business can play a huge part in trying to combat some of these global challenges. One is, and we heard it from a few of our speakers this morning, about Dole Street, about unemployment, about the very high unemployment we have, particularly in the UK, of 16 to 19-year-olds. Now just have a look at this, and who would you trust to tackle the long-term unemployment problem? Department of Work and Pensions? Local authorities? Charities? Businesses? Or none of the above? Well, actually, if your mind is thinking, well, A, B, they really should be there to tackle those problems, but it's not working. Charities do it to a certain extent. Businesses try, but they're always on about the output and not about the outcome. The people who can make the biggest difference locally are social enterprises. And we know this from the work we do with our young people at Hillholt Wood. Rowntree are a very big charity who look after the interests of young people in the UK, and they did a survey recently, and they discovered that local social enterprises who have got entry into local funding from local employment agencies are the people who can make the most difference because they've got the local knowledge, and that is really key. Again, climate change. Who would you trust to be the most effective? And climate change is happening, whether we like it or not. I mean, everybody is now talking about the weather, not just the British. Everybody's talking about it. So the UN, national governments, charities, businesses, or none of the above. I want the social entrepreneurs in the audience to be thinking, no, I can do that. I can manage. I can change. Because when we need to tackle these massive global problems, it's about changing human nature. It's about changing your local communities. Abraham Lincoln once said, I can depend on the people to rise to the occasion of the global challenges and the national challenges if you give them two things, the truth and transparency. And that is, as social enterprises, that is what we do. And we are all talking about climate change. But I went to bed last night buzzing from all of the networking I did, because in Lithuania, there is a climate to change. And that is absolutely key. And in all of this, us mad people in the social enterprise sector, we are optimistic. We are the monkey. We will catch that elephant and he will not fall. And that is absolutely, and Uday and Phil, said it before, we cannot be pigeonholed. When I tell my story, I will tell you about how mad they thought we are. Now, I'm Irish, and most people think us Irish are mad anyway. Totally cuckoo. We're storytellers. We like to have a drink. We love the crack, but the illegal crack, not the unlegal crack. We're all a bit mad. And actually, that really does help. So don't let people pigeonhole you to the extent that your enthusiasm becomes part of a plan. Because as you and I know as social entrepreneurs, there is no plan. The plan happens when you wake up in the morning and you think about what you have to tackle, what you have to do. There is no given plan for that. And I will come on to the one thing I would suggest to you that you should have a plan, and that's around your finances. So, where is the history of the UK government? In 1997, the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, commits to supporting social enterprise in his first policy speech. And you can see that that was really the turn of the tide when government absolutely got behind the whole work about social enterprise. And that term, as Uday said, wasn't even coined by then. It was people doing good things in business. But I actually objected to that. Because as a businesswoman, I wanted people to do business with me because I was bloody good at what I do. The fact that I was looking after homeless, looking after those with mental health, looking after young offenders, was an added value. I'm good at what I do, therefore you should procure with me. In 2000, Unlimited was launched to promote and develop entrepreneurs with an endowment of 100 million. And as you see, right up until the present day, we have had interventions, we've had a new government who have still continued to support the whole social enterprise movement. The launch of the Big Society Capital, which the Ambassador mentioned this morning, I have yet to see how that works for me, but perhaps I could have that discussion with them at a later stage. But what is really key is that in every government public speech, the word social enterprise is coming up. And even the Queen mentioned it in her speech last year. She mentioned social enterprise. And I think that that is really important. And I'll speak a little later on about getting yourself a champion when you're a brand new social enterprise. And I think that that is really key. So my set of figures, I think, might, in the next slide, contradict everything Tim has said and everything the Ambassador has said. But it just goes to show that nothing has been coordinated. So in 2002, the Social Enterprise body was formed. It was then called Social Enterprise Coalition. It's a membership organisation, network of over 20,000 social enterprises, bringing together all of the different forms of social enterprise, but crucially supporting us and being the conduit between us and government. And I think it's really important in the room to remember that I'm doing like other UK people have done. I'll be flagging up the big boys and girls, the £45 million turnover. Hill-Holt Wood are not in that bracket. There are many, many smaller social enterprises, and Social Enterprise UK and Red Ochre can be our champions because we don't live in London. We live in rural England, and quite often things get very London-centric, and you can feel that actually you don't have a voice. So an overarching body, I have just said you don't have a voice. I don't think I've ever met a social entrepreneur who hasn't had a voice, really, who can't talk for England. But these bodies are important in order to be that conduit to government. Influencing national policy and political agendas, really key that you have got a voice. Particularly, we are an environmental and a social enterprise. And the green agenda to us is massively important. And they, of course, can showcase everything that you do. They've got that kind of leg up to media, TV, which is really important. We talked a lot about definition, and again, it's something I'm not going to linger on because you can't define a social entrepreneur. But the definition of social enterprise are businesses who trade for a stated primary social purpose. This is what defines us from just a business who are very ethical. They might be very ethical, but they do not have stated as their primary purpose a social or environmental cause. That they reinvest more than 50% of their profits back into the business. And this was a government definition, and I actually don't agree with that second point. Social enterprises, in my view, are there to trade for social and environmental good, and all of the profits go back into the organisation. And they're owned in the interest of their community or intended beneficiaries. And again, key, they are transparent and accountable regarding their impact and their operations. So these figures, 70,000 social enterprises in the UK, and these figures again, I'm just going to say they're general figures. 39% are based in deprived area. That's key. But this is an interesting one. 59% grew last year compared to 28% of SMEs. There is a growth happening with social enterprise, with the prediction of 57% growth next year, and 38% are led by women. That is very telling, I think, because Phil related some of his slides to emotions. And I'm not saying that the males in our audience are emotionally stunted in any way, but I do think that women see at first hand some of the issues and some of the problems that are caused with social deprivation, and then they can do something about it. 75% are actively involved in governance. So David Cameron, I think it is really important that the government at Lithuania absolutely get behind everything that is social enterprise based. And this was his statement. This is what he says, and this is what he's hoping is going to filter down through all the other government bodies. Just a little bit of a warning. David Cameron came to visit Hillholt Wood in 2006. Prior, he was leader of the Conservatives, but not Prime Minister. He really liked what he saw with us. He sort of said, you should be telling us what to do. And I said, I will remind you of that if you get into number 10, which he did. One of my young guys just out of prison made him a really nice table mat with just the number 10 on it, made from wood, so that he would remember us when he got into power. But of course, he has got lots of other very important things to do. So he gives the responsibility of his commitment to social enterprise to others. So therefore, sometimes in your organisation, if you're looking to procure business from a big organisation, you think it's good to go to the very top. It's been my experience to go to the middle where all the decisions are made. Because I would like to get Mr. Cameron sometimes in front of me and remind him exactly of his promises. So again, we spoke this morning with the ambassador about the local bill, which has been really important. It's allowing organisations to procure and to fight your corner, that when you're procuring with your local government, that they should take into consideration the social value of what you do. So again, social enterprise in the UK, traditionally people think it's around the social care services, looking after the needy. It's not just that anymore. It's housing associations, it's health, it's leisure, it's consumer, it is across the board and diverse. And this new badge of social enterprise business where society profits is been seen a lot now, where organisations are associated to Social Enterprise UK. They've got this badge to say we are a social enterprise, we are a social enterprise supporter. But it's about getting the term out into the mainstream. Mentioned HCT. The reason I love this organisation, they have a £45 million turnover. They're one of the big guys. But the guy, Di Powell, who runs this, started life as a washer of the buses. That was his job as a teenager. He washed the double-decker buses. And now he runs this tremendous social enterprise which employs over 600 people, has got a great turnover, but is making a big difference. Blue Water, who invest 85% of their profits back into their local economies. You know, years and years ago, who would have ever thought? They would have said that's very Irish. You're going to sell water in a bottle. You just take it out of the tap. But look at it now, you know. It is just a media thing, and now people are just buying bottled water. So now it brings me on to my organisation, which is Hill Holtwood. The first thing I want to say is I'm a businesswoman. I love making money. I love making a profit. A profit isn't a dirty word, as long as the profit goes the right way. And that is to benefit the many and not the few. In big organisations, the profits benefit the shareholders. In our organisation, the profits benefit the stakeholders, the people who are my customers, the people who are my clients, the people who just wander into the wood for a visit, my mental health patients, my young learners. They are all the stakeholders, and they profit from everything we do. Phil kindly alluded to my husband. My husband's name is Nigel, not Kevin, but I love but I just love the fact as an Irish woman that he thought it was Kevin, so I think I might rechristen him when I get back to England. Years ago, in 1991, I worked for a big national or global pharmaceutical company called Upjohn Pharmaceutical Company, now owned by Pfizer. And I loved my 14 years there. I really did. They were an amazing company, and I loved working for them. And in 1991, I found myself single. And my friends organised for me to go to a ball and go on a blind date. And my date on that night was an Englishman called Nigel Lowthrop. Now, as the event was happening in Ireland, nobody told the English blokes about Irish time. And Irish time is very different because when you go to an event, it's spent most of the time in the pub, and then you look at your watch and think, oh, I better go to the event. So on the invitation, it will say to be at the event for 7:30. In Irish time, that means kind of 8:30, 9 o'clock after you've had a few drinks. And that is what happened. My blind date was nearly not to be because we didn't turn up until 9:15. I was introduced to the 6'2.5" guy, and they said, "This is Karen O'Sullivan. I'd like you to meet Nigel Lowthrop, and I'm sure you'll get on very well." So the first thing he said to me is, "What do you do?" And I said, I work for a big multinational company. I've just flown back from these States where we've just given them one of the biggest profit margins we have ever had. And I felt all really chuffed with myself. And he was totally unimpressed. So I looked at him and I said, I got a bit shirty. And I said, "So is that not a good thing?" And he said, "Not if that profit is only going to a handful of shareholders. No, I'm not impressed." So I said, "Okay, what do you do? Come on, trump that. What do you do?" And he said, "It's not what I've done that matters. It's what I'm going to do that matters." Now, I am what I call, I'm afraid, a collapsed Catholic. I was a lapsed Catholic, and then things went so pear-shaped in Ireland, I became a collapsed Catholic. And I thought when Nigel Kevin mentioned this, that he was going to be some evangelical person who was going to just berate me for what I did. Well, I couldn't be further wrong. Nigel is a scientist. He is a thinker. He is a visionary. He is a madman. He is the guy who comes up with ideas that nobody thinks are going to work. So that evening, he said, what I'm going to do is buy a wood. I'm going to live in and off this wood as green as I can. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, I'm going to live off the grid. What does that mean? It means I am going to just take rainwater from the sky and use that, and I'm going to generate all my power from the sun and wind. And I'm going to build a house of wood or straw or mud. And then the little piggy thing came, that little poem that we learnt as children. So I said, okay, that's fine, I've got that. And then what else are you going to do? I want to set up a community-owned and controlled business. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is 1991. And as a businesswoman, I said, stop there. So what is the business model going to be? I presume it's going to be a charity. He said, no, God forbid. No, not a charity, because you are dependent on handouts. Okay? Is it going to be a cooperative? No, it's not, because that is just a model for shares, and I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be owned and controlled by the people who matter. The people in the community that know what it is they need to make their lives better. So, the end of the night ended with 7 weeks later, we set up a business. Oh, I married him, by the way, and sorry, I forgot to mention that, and we're still married after all these years. But 7 weeks later, I went home buzzing because he told me, I've got all the ideas. I wake up buzzing with the ideas, but I can't manage. I won't be able to manage. And I thought, I'm not to the point where I'm buzzing with ideas, but I could be a really good co-preneur. And that's what I call myself. I think that the word entrepreneur we've run away a little bit with it. There are people who are born entrepreneurs. I am a really good co-preneur. I can do all the managing stuff. I can get the policies, procedures. I can make sure the insurances are there. I can make sure that the due diligence is there for governance. I like that kind of detail. I'm a people person. I can do that. Nigel is just interested in the big, big, big idea. And that is crucial within your organisations, is to make sure that you've got a good mix. You can't bake a cake with one ingredient. So make sure you've got a lot of good people around you. Now, this slide looks a bit complicated, but I think it's a really good slide to explain what I see social enterprise as. People say to me, so you are a charity? I'm not a charity. So you are a business? I am a business, but I'm not a business as usual. So if you look at this slide and look at the left-hand side and look at the word purpose, caveat emptor, buyer beware, is your usual business model. The purpose of that business is self-regarding. The role of the other is exploitation. The behaviour of the other is opportunism. You've got a product, you want to get it to market, you want to exploit people, and you're looking for opportunism. The goals for resources is to accumulate as much as you can, and the basis for benefit is power, and the dominant form is business. In the middle, you've got the charity sector, prenum non sera. Those in need go first. The purpose is that it is other regarding. Charities are there because they want to serve others. The role to the other is a protection. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to look after you. The behaviour to the other, in most cases, is altruism. I will feel better by doing this. The goals for resource is distribution. The basis for the benefit is why you're there is because there's need, and the dominant form is charity. So this PhD student from Canada, after he came and spent a bit of time with us, thought, well, you're none of that and you're none of that. So I have to find a new slot for you, and I've come up with it. And it's called in perpetuum. And in perpetuum is forever. I don't know whether it's the same in Lithuania, but our teenagers in the UK, when you ask them to do anything, they say, whatever, whatever. And when they leave Hillholt Wood, they turn around and they say, forever. And that subtlety is so important. So what is the purpose of the social enterprise? It is regarding oneself with others. The role of the other is activation. The behaviour to the other is about mutualism. The goals for resources is perpetuation. Let's keep it going. The basis for benefit is not power. It is not need. It's giving a worthy contribution. And the dominant form is sustainable social enterprise. And just to give you just an idea of what I'm talking about is if you've got somebody who is homeless and hungry, the charity quite rightly will protect that person and give them soup from the soup kitchen. The social enterprise will try to protect that person, but they will activate them. They will come to the wood. They will go to the garden. They will pick the vegetables. They will wash the vegetables. They will prepare the soup. And they will be part of the mutual benefit because they will cook their own soup. They will eat it. They will feel better. But we have had a worthy contribution. And that, to me, defines certainly the work that we do at Hillholt Wood. So Nigel and I, within 7 weeks, set up a social enterprise in 1992, January 1992, called Economic Conservation. When you set up a social enterprise for environmental purposes, everyone assumes you'll go out with a box to save the white cabbage butterfly, to save the badger, to save the one, and people will just give because it's a nice thing to do. It is not economically viable to run your business like that. So the econ stands for community, opportunity, things that are natural, sustainability, underpinned by a strong economic leg. Now, when I say that I'm a businesswoman and I love to make money, I do. What has changed my mind about making the money is how much the more money I can make can benefit people all around me. And that is absolutely key. So if you are a social entrepreneur that is as mad as Nigel and just comes up with all the ideas, buddy yourself up with a co-preneur. Buddy yourself up with somebody who'll go, okay, I love it, it's great, but where's the money coming from? Where's the business plan? Because you want to keep the in perpetuum going. So gather people around you who share your vision, but who will be able to support you to make that vision a reality. I have just stuck the slide in because we bought 34 acres of land in 1993 for 32,000 UK pounds. That was when land was not being valued, woodland was not being valued. We wanted to prove the value of ancient woodland in the 21st century. So please picture this. Pretend you're in a wood, very green, very overgrown. You have a mad couple, a 12-month-old son and an 8-year-old stepdaughter, and you tow a caravan into the wood like we did, and this is now going to be home. I'm from City of Dublin, so I'm kind of going, okay, I'm still with this madman who has all this vision. I'm sure we'll get there. He showed me how to use a generator, and I had to remind him that our 12-year-old son, we were still toilet training him and we didn't have a toilet. So as he had spent 2 years working on South Georgia for the Antarctic survey, he just dug a hole and thought, there you go, you'll be fine. And we were. But for 10 years, we started to get our business together. We wanted to prove to people that woodlands can make an income, and not just from chopping down woods, because wood, that's the last thing we do. Our income comes from having an alternative eco school for boys and girls excluded from school who are in trouble with the police and with the law. We have a small architects practice who deal with eco build. The wood is open free of charge to the public and has been since the day we moved in. And we also do lots of consultancy, and we've built a beautiful building, which is our community hall. How did all of this happen? We were very, very young at the social enterprise business. We sat in our caravan wondering, like I'm sure some of you in the audience are doing now, how do you get your business off the ground? The first thing we did was get our local community involved, gave them our plan, told them what we were going to do. We didn't labour on the fact that we had no money. We just sold the dream. And people bought into that dream. And that is what's really crucial. I rang then our local council to see if I could get planning permission to build our home. And because I had a very strong Irish accent, which I may still have now, I'm not sure. But as I made the phone call to the planner, I said, hello, my name is Karen. I live in a wood in a caravan and I'd like to get planning permission. He said, over my dead body. I said, I think you're jumping to conclusions. I don't think you can say that. He put the phone down. 2 days later, I had a visitor who was from the Gypsy Liaison group who had heard that there was an Irish travelling family had moved into a wood and they were getting up to no good. Well, isn't it wonderful that all these years later, with 45 employees and all of the people whose dream it was of a handful of us to change the world, that we can say we are a company doing good. We did get planning permission for our home. This is our home. We built this ourselves. Harry, who was 10, Nigel and myself, age disclosed, we built this and we wanted to prove to the planners and to the local authorities that if you've got people with a vision and they want to do good, then by building their own home and not taking electricity, not taking anything off the services, they can be self-sufficient. And this is the home that we built, and we are now helping others in the UK to be as self-sufficient as we are. And just to finish up, we procure business from our local government and from local county councils. This is really important because although Mr. Cameron and others say they really want to support social enterprises, in the main, I think, a lot of that is supporting the very big social enterprises. Small social enterprises like us, and things are changing now dramatically with big society and other capital investment coming in. But when we go to our local council to say we want to manage the countryside services, pick up the litter, mow the paths, look after all the parklands, they say they want to contract with us. But I haven't got a big enough staff to do all of that bureaucracy. I can't do that. But I persuaded them that the win-win-win for them is they do business with me. I tick a lot of their green agenda boxes. They will get brownie points from the government and everybody else. I am taking the young people who are causing the most trouble in the community out. I am putting them into hoodies. They are going around doing good instead of doing bad. So you find a way of doing business with me. And they did. So we have got 3 separate contracts, all under £100,000, which means that we can have a service level agreement and don't have to go through the full contractual process. And we are 9 years into that, and that is working very, very well. So I'm just going to finish up by saying that social enterprise is now involved in wind, in transport, in football, across the board. Involved in partners. Partnership working is key. You can't do this on your own. You need the charities and you need the businesses and you need the big boys and girls. You just need to convince them about looking at the triple bottom line instead of the bottom line. It's a global movement, and we think social enterprises, has a solution for change for new and old. And all I would like to say to you is, I was really chuffed, and I think I've got this right. In the taxi last night on my way to the networking, did I see a big bust of John Lennon? Yes. Okay. When I finish doing my talk, I always like to end with a quote. And my quote is never from, big universities or MBA students. It's from John Lennon. John Lennon from the Beatles said, "If you have a dream and you dream on your own, it remains a dream. If you have a dream and you dream with others, it becomes a reality." Social enterprise is all about dreaming. And to make that work, you need to work with others. I wish you all well. Thank you so much for the invitation to come. And just remember, small is beautiful. And I say that as being 4'11" 3/4, unless big is better. So the very best of luck to each and every one of you with your endeavours. Thank you.